What's going on? Welcome to VPC. My name is Trevor Gudrie, and I want to welcome you today. We're going to jump into this topic of wisdom. Now, my wife and I, we don't watch a lot of TV, and often we don't really get a whole lot of time to finish a show. If we start a movie, we watch it over the span of 3 days because we have kids, and you understand after that sentence. But when we do get a chance to watch TV, one of our favorite shows is Blue Bloods. Now, if you have no clue what I just said there, nothing connecting for you, then I encourage you, go look up this show. I don't know where to find the seasons, but there's like 11 seasons, so you're welcome. You can binge it as much as you want. I don't know, just pick a weekend and just watch it all. But the thing about Blue Bloods is this show about a family who is comprised of police officers, detectives, police commissioner, and lawyers, and they work in New York City. And so they're a family of people involved in law enforcement. And there's everything that you need. There's action, suspense, there's family dynamics and romance, and whatever you're looking for, there's stuff in this show for you. And one of the things that I love most about this show is one specific character. And that character is the father in this family, Frank Reagan. And so there's just something about this character that resonates with me. And I think what it is that there's this deep sense of wisdom when he speaks and the way that this character lives. Right? He's seen loss, he's seen victory, he works as the police commissioner of New York City, so he has to make difficult decisions in political climates, and he sees all of these moments. He is a pillar for his family. He has these deep wisdom conversations and gives advice to his children. And usually after one episode, I'm sitting there thinking, like, this is the kind of man I want to be when I get older. When I talk, I want it to sound like that. Now, you're probably thinking, like, Trevor, of course he's this great, figure because he is not real. He's a character. He's written into a script. And that's true, but what it's done to me, it's actually made me realize something about wisdom. It has shown me that wisdom is attractive. That wisdom, there's something to wisdom that draws us in. There is something about that character, and it is that when he speaks, wisdom seems to flow out of that moment that draws me in to this show. And see, there's this beautiful scripture in Proverbs 8:11 says this: "Wisdom is more precious than rubies. Nothing you could want is equal to it. With her right hand, wisdom offers you a long life, and with her left hand, she gives you riches and honor. Wisdom will make your life pleasant and will bring you peace." And there's this beautiful picture of wisdom and the beauty and the pleasantness that it brings to our life, which explains to me why we're all looking for it. Because I would say for the most part, all of us are looking to become more wise. We're looking for a life full of wisdom. And I've had this kind of interesting relationship with wisdom over the years. I've become fascinated with the wisdom tradition, with this growing a life of wisdom. And I remember over the years, I would hear these scriptures, I would hear these stories of King Solomon, and this moment where God meets him and asks him, "What can I do for you? What can I give you?" And instead of asking for a long life, instead of asking for the defeat of his enemies, he asked for wisdom. He asked for wisdom to lead his people well. And so God grants him wisdom. And then you see from there that there's this progression as people come to him simply because of the way that he lives his life. That the way he sets tables and designs his kingdom is actually calling people and drawing them in. and actually bringing them to an awareness that Solomon is connected to the divine, that he is connected to God simply by the way that he lives. And so I remember there would be years that every day I would simply just ask God for wisdom, because I knew if I had wisdom in my life would be blessed, my life would be better. And this beautiful thing about wisdom is that it could be simply that easy. Right? In James 1:5 says this, "If any of you lacks wisdom, he should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to him." Right? We could just end the message. We could shut the video off. Please don't. But we could shut the video off after that, because is it that easy? Right? If I lack wisdom, if I just simply ask God, he gives generously to all without finding fault. And so the beautiful thing about God is that he is fast and he's eager for us to find this beautiful life of wisdom. But the thing about wisdom is that the truth of wisdom must always be held in tension. Because there's an aspect of wisdom that is a gift. There's an aspect of wisdom that is something we ask for. Yet there is an aspect of wisdom that can only be found through growth. Right? There's an aspect of it that is found through asking, and an aspect of it that is found through living and growth. It's like Jesus, when between being born and his ministry beginning, there's this 30-year period where Luke 2:52 says this, "And Jesus grew in wisdom and stature, in favor with God and man." And what that shows me is that it is possible to ask God for wisdom, but in other ways, it's a requirement of us to continue to grow in this wisdom. That Jesus, during his time as he's growing up and preparing for ministry, preparing basically for 3 of the wildest years of his life, he is found growing in wisdom and stature and favor with God and man. And so wisdom is something that we can ask for, but it's something that we actually can grow into deeper areas of wisdom. And that's this is the wisdom I want to highlight today. Before we go any further, I think it would be of value to at least attempt to define wisdom. Sometimes we talk about these words and we literally have no clue of what they are. We think we do, but when we have to describe it, we lose words. And so wisdom comes from the Hebrew word chokmah. And it's usually personified as a woman, which if you're married, you understand why that is, because a life of wisdom looks a lot like listening to your wife. Amen, ladies. There you go. Wisdom is aligning ourselves with the deepest parts of our being to something that has been present the entire time. I want to read just a little bit of this. I'm going to paraphrase because it's longer, but Proverbs 8:22 talks about the fact that wisdom was present in the beginning. It says this, "The Lord brought me forth as the first of his works, before his deeds of old, and I was formed long ages ago. At the very beginning, the world came to be. When there was no watery depths, I was given birth. When there was no springs overflowing with water, before the mountains were settled in place, before the hills I was given birth. Before he made the world or its fields or any dust of the earth, I was there when he set the heavens in place. When he marked out the horizon of the face of the deep, when he established the clouds above." Then it goes on to say, "Then I was constantly at his side. I was filled with delight, day after day, rejoicing always in his presence, rejoicing in his whole world and delighting in mankind." And we see that wisdom has been here the entire time. Wisdom has been part of the story from the beginning till now, and it will continue to be this beautiful understanding and knowledge that flows through eternity. And so when I talk about wisdom, we're talking about this thing that has been present the entire time that we actually begin to become aware of. Wisdom is about what's doing right and just and fair. It's not a head game or how many facts we understand or how much we can memorize. It's about knowing what is the next right thing to do. In this specific moment, what is the next right thing to do? It's the ability to judge correctly and to follow the best course of action based on knowledge and understanding. And wisdom is the ability to see the world and circumstances from God's viewpoint and perspective. It's tapping into knowledge and understanding that has been flowing through all eternity. It's not knowledge, but rather the proper use of knowledge. Wisdom is not determined by intelligence, but by a willingness to listen. Wisdom is always speaking. Wisdom is constantly calling out to mankind, calling out to humanity. Proverbs 1:20 says this, "Out in the open wisdom calls aloud. She raises her voice in the public square. On the top of the wall she cries out, and at the city gate she makes her speech." And here's this beautiful moment where when we read out of Proverbs, we see that wisdom is constantly trying to communicate with us, trying to call us into a deeper level of wisdom, a deeper understanding and knowledge. In every situation, wisdom is actually inviting us to engage with it. Right? Wisdom is going beyond this kind of wishful and, rub the lamp and ask God for wisdom. It's moving into this day-to-day continual growth of understanding and knowledge about the divine and the ways that the world and the divine work together. God gives wisdom, but also allows us to grow in wisdom. Wisdom is always talking to us. And my level of wisdom is determined by my ability and willingness to listen and to hear. Physically, if you think about physically, if my ability to hear becomes damaged, my ability to speak will begin to deteriorate. Right? If I lose my sense of hearing, if I lose the ability to listen, my voice, my speaking will begin to deteriorate. And now the same thing goes along with wisdom, because there's a connection, there's an association between my ability to listen to the call of wisdom and my ability to live and speak out of wisdom or from wisdom. Proverbs 1:5 says this, "Let the wise listen and add to their learning, and let the discerning get guidance." Wisdom is this ongoing conversation. It's this ongoing communication with wisdom herself. But the best conversations come from the best questions. See, here's this exercise you can do. It's interesting to meet somebody, and then as you walk away from that introductory exchange, to question yourself, what do I really know about that person? Right? I'm notoriously bad for meeting somebody. We'll meet people in our neighborhood, and I walk away, and literally moments later, my wife will ask, hey, what's their name? And I'm like, I have no clue. It's like my brain just shut off as soon as I walked away. And I remember in those moments, when I first met my wife, I was so taken back, and I think some of it was just shock because it was so far from where I was living. When I first met her, I would see her meet people, and she would question and investigate because she was actually looking to add value to people's lives. She would ask what do they do, but not just what they do. How do they do it? What does that make them feel? Do they enjoy it? What kind of things bring life to them? What kind of things fills their life with joy? She would question people, and she would actually find people interesting. And here's the deal. The most interesting people in the world find the world interesting. The most interesting people in the world find the world interesting. Because if you want to grow in wisdom, the ancient wisdom tradition requires us to become fascinated and interested with the world. Because that is where wisdom calls to us. Right? When my wife would question, she was questioning to add value, but she was questioning to also add value to her own life, because in that exchange, she was finding knowledge and understanding that was once covered. Listen, the world is not boring. The world is full of life. The only problem is that we usually don't go past a few questions. Wisdom is found on the other end of curiosity and questioning. How does the world work? What was God's intention for the way for humanity and the divine to live and move together? Wisdom is found when we become extremely interested with the world, with others, and with God. See, questions are what allow us to use our experiences to build foundations for future wisdom, for future understanding. See, my wife and I and our kids, we just sold our home, and we are a few weeks from closing. And now we're going through all of these emotions, because there's the excitement of selling and the dread of shutting that door for the last time, knowing that we are no longer those homeowners. And I've had people, talk to us about, it's important not to get too attached to a home because it'll make it easier when you have to sell. And the only issue with that is that the home that we live in right now is not simply 2x4s and drywall. See, this home is not just pipes and flooring. Because when we lived in that home, it became a vessel. It became something that held celebrations and arguments. It held memories and dreams. It held ups and downs. We brought 2 babies home to that home. We've experienced so much, and that home has seen probably more laughter and joking and dancing than it probably can contain. And there's this interesting thing that has happened this last few weeks where I have started to become aware of the blessing and the gain to my life that this home has been. Now, it's interesting because this home was a benefit to me 2 years ago. It was a benefit to me a year ago. But right now, in this moment, I'm becoming more aware of the fact this home actually had a lot to offer me. This home was actually growing my wisdom, growing my understanding, growing my knowledge of how to do life, how to live it well, how to develop family, and to develop a work ethic. You see, this is our first home, so we put blood, sweat, and tears into this thing. It was a fixer-upper. And now we come to this moment where we are going to prepare to say goodbye to it. And I'm in a moment of becoming aware and allowing the wisdom that it holds to create a foundation for future wisdom. Because awareness is what separates us or connects us to what is going on around us or going on inside of us. Awareness is what allows my experiences to prepare me for future and deeper wisdom. If I move through these experiences without actually engaging, without connecting to the moment, then I never actually build up a foundation. I have wisdom for a moment and then it's lost because I simply move through my experience. But when we become connected and engage and partner and interact with the experiences and the moments that we go through, the moments of our lives, we actually begin to build a foundation upon a foundation where wisdom is growing and growing, and we're growing in understanding. Because wisdom, on this wisdom journey, it's imperative that we tune into the world we're living in. We tune into our experiences, and because of that, that is where wisdom is calling. It's in those experiences, in the triumphs and the greatest trials of our lives. That's where wisdom is calling. And it would be a shame for us to come out the end of it no different than when we went into it. Wisdom is found in the gray. Wisdom is found in the gray. One of the things I love about Jesus is that he never would shy away from the moments when there was no black or white answer. He would never shy away from the moments where there were not hard lines. And even if culture in that day, even if culture and tradition would create a black and white answer, a yes and a right and wrong answer, Jesus would seemingly step into a moment and open up the opportunities and realize and show everybody and reveal to everybody that there was so much more going on in that moment. See, the life of Jesus to me begins to show me that the world is much more layered and multifaceted than I once saw it. Where when I step into moments and I think there's a black and white, that he actually reveals to me that there are grays. Where there are moments where I will only find wisdom if I'm willing to listen and hear its call. When you think about these moments where he would step into the moment where the woman is caught in adultery. And it's a pretty black and white moment in that day, but he steps in with alternative wisdom and post-conventional wisdom, and he steps in and with one sentence, he flips the religious system, he flips the law on its head, and he silences accusers and brings value and allows a woman to know she is seen and valued and accepted in one moment with one sentence. And then the religious leaders would constantly ask him questions to try and trip him up because they knew the law. They were studied in the law. They loved the constructs and the black and white answers. And they would ask Jesus trying to trip him up, yet Jesus would then turn it back and ask them a question that would completely draw them into an opportunity to find wisdom they didn't even understand was present at the moment. Right? He would ask them all these questions that would actually cause them to say, I will either let go of my current constructs, the current ways of doing things, and go into something deeper, or I will hold on to what I know and refuse to hear the call of wisdom. He spoke in parables. He constantly said, if you don't understand the ways of this world, if you don't understand human and world knowledge, then how are you going to understand the knowledge and understanding of heaven? And so he lived his life where we had black and white answers, we had hard lines, and he would step into the gray and invite us into the gray and say, this right here, this blurry, uncomfortable line, these areas where you don't really know if you're making the right decision. This is where wisdom is found. This is where the call of wisdom is. Because you can hear the voice if you lean in and listen. And in the gray, that is where wisdom is found. Deep wisdom is found where the lines are not well defined, where the answers are not easy. It is there that the wise listen and hear the call of wisdom, where the wise listen and add to their learning. We can love constructs, but the learner realizes that the world is full of moments that hold the deep well of wisdom. The tension of wisdom is that it's both a gift and a growth. It's both a momentary thing and a continual learning. We can ask for it, but we must also hear its call and move and learn with it. Wisdom is a continual process. Remain teachable, remain open. Continue to listen because she is speaking and she is your teacher.